10,000 hours. That's the amount of time that they say, and I don't know who they is, but I believe them. 10,000 hours to master a certain niche. Whether that be audio engineering, which is what this YouTube channel is geared towards, or any other type of profession or sport. 10,000 hours to really understand what's going on. Now, if you do the math on that, multiply the amount of days in a year, 365, or actually divide 10,000 into 365, and we're talking, you know, in about, let's say, a 4 to 5 year period, doing something for 5 hours a day, you're still not going to be a master of that, and that's completely fine. A good example of that really is when you start to practice an instrument or a musical instrument. This, you know, if you record yourself on day one and you practice that instrument, even just for an hour a day, and then record yourself a month later, you'll see a marked improvement. I'm a drummer. That's my main musical instrument. And, you know, when I get out of practice, I'm terrible. You know, my wrists don't move like they should, but just 2 days of practicing, I'm loosened up and I'm ready to go, and my timing's back. You know, the most important things for drummers is timing and speed. And, you know, that's it. You lose it if you don't do it. Trumpet is another instrument that I play, and you lose your lip to hit the higher notes, or in some cases to hit the lower notes. Now, that those are a little bit easier, but the high notes, you really got to press your lips together, and it's something that you can only acquire through practice. So I'm making this video for my audio engineering geared YouTube channel, but this really applies to anybody. But yeah, 10,000 hours of doing something to master it, you know, paying your dues. That's what you got to do. You know, don't get frustrated if your stuff doesn't sound that great. You know, a lot of that has to do with experimenting. A lot of it has to do with gear quality. As I've said before, you know, I understand, like, look, you know, my mixes aren't the greatest, but at the same time, if they were tracked in a $1 million studio with that expensive outboard gear, or I say outboard gear, but really it could be anything. It could be Neve preamps inside of the SSL console, or the you could have everything in one of those lunch boxes, you know, that cost as much as a car to buy. You know, I definitely believe that good gear makes better results, but at the same time, I'm in the same situation as you guys in that, you know, I don't have a huge budget to blow on a ton of gear. That's what most of our situations are. You know, we're lucky to even be able to record ourselves. You know, a $300 microphone is a huge expense to a lot of people. You know, I consider myself lucky that I have access to about $15,000 worth of audio gear. Now that's not used, that's brand new, $10,000 to $15,000 worth of audio gear. But, you know, I agree, just like I've said before, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but I'm wearing possibly the most expensive lavalier microphone that you can buy. Now it's wired, it's going through an XLR cable, but it's top of the line, and it wasn't cheap. But, you know, one of my video jobs paid for it back in the day, you know, and it's a durable microphone, but like all lavalier microphones, like all little tiny microphones, the clip on it easily breaks, and I just had to get it replaced, and it was 20 bucks for a little piece of metal and plastic. But, you know, that's the cost of doing video business, and, you know, you gotta remember, this stuff isn't cheap. Even on the low end, it's still not cheap. So yeah, 10,000 hours of practicing. Luckily, we live in a world with software that emulates expensive audio hardware. So, you know, we can realize that dream a lot easier because of that. You know, the amount of audio software that's come out in just the past 4 or 5 years is absolutely incredible. And I couldn't get my mixes to sound the way they do if it weren't for those plugins. And, you know, I've spent, I don't know, thousands of dollars on that software. because I believe in getting a professional sound, as professional as my studio can get. Again, I believe that the gear does play a big part of it, just like a mechanic needs a lift to really work on a car, because they can't, you know, if they're really going to be working on cars day in and day out, they can't, you know, lay down on their back and slide underneath cars. And there's some cars that are so low to the ground you can't slide underneath them. So, you know, that hydraulic lift, or whatever it is, whatever that official name of it is a necessary thing for that business. And you guys got to remember, and I say this all the time, I don't think audio engineering is a good career path at this point in time, because of the lack of jobs out there in general, but also the lack of need for those services. And I'm going to say this for another video, but if you're doing this and hoping to make a career out of it, you really times infinity need to bust your ass and network with people, because it is, you know, if the economy's bad now, it's even tougher to find a niche job, which is what this is. So that's all I can say. Remember, 10,000 hours. If you do it 10 hours a day, that's 3,650 hours put into it. So in like a 2.5 year period, you can pay your, you know, your dues could be paid, but again, that's 10 hours every single day. So realistically, we're talking like 10 years to really master something. And I still don't think I've mastered this thing. Like I said, I've never messed around with a big console before. And the biggest console I messed with was, I think, 32 inputs, and it was a piece of junk Behringer mixer for when I was doing live sound. And even then I was like missing all my, you know, with plugins, you're so used to having what in the hardware world would be outboard gear going into your console inserts, and having one, you know, a compressor for each channel, a parametric equalizer on each channel where you can dial in the bandwidth, the Q as it's called, for each frequency, and you can have as many bands as you want. You can have a high pass and a low pass filter. Not so with a lot of live gear. Oh, and my microphone fell. Like I said, the clip on this thing broke and it just fell. I thought I could get away with using the broken clip, not the new one, and apparently that was not the case. So anyway, I'm going to end this video and just again say, paying your dues, 10,000 hours. Don't forget about it when you're sitting there getting frustrated that, you know, you're not getting the sound that these guys who've been doing this stuff for 20, 30 years, or the guys who learn from somebody doing this for 20 or 30 years, got that knowledge passed down to them. Then that's a shortcut to this 10,000 hour thing, because if you learn from the masters, you know, you'll bypass all their mistakes. You know, that's kind of what I've hoped to do with this channel, was to pass on some of my knowledge about audio engineering and save you guys a lot of time, and give you advice that I wish I would have been given back in the day, and also give you advice that you may not learn at a traditional college or technical school, just because a lot of these teachers just either they've never used the cheaper gear, or they've never, you know, been around. I don't know. Some teachers just are bad. We all know that. There's bad teachers, there's good teachers. I was a teacher at one point, just actually a month or two ago, and prior to that, 4 years. So I'm not just teaching people on the internet. I have taught people in person about how to do this stuff, and you know, it's not easy handling a class of 30 people. So I can't blame them, but you know, that's kind of why I like learning stuff off of YouTube, because you can get into complicated things, and it's one-on-one, even though it's not actually one-on-one like in person. But you can, you know, you can sit down there and watch a 30-minute video and have have an undivided attention, or you can pause the video and come back later if you're starting to drift off, or you can replay that video. You know, you can't really replay a college class instruction. Anyway, I need to talk about that in another video. So this has been Adam for RealHomeRecording.com.